Hello everybody. Thank you for watching my YouTube video. In the earlier topic we were discussing about the deployments, and in this topics we will be discussing about config, secrets, and L check. L checks or liveness. So in the config, what we are going to do is that is, and normally we will, if you have any configuration related to configuration file related to application or specific values that you want to add it, so you can use configs and config map on the Kubernetes. You can specify in the YAML file and you can call it back. Config file also contains full configuration files. For example, if you have a web server config file, you can try to take that configuration file and you can inject them into the pod, and then you can try to deploy the application. So actually config file is an input, nothing but a key value pair. The config file will value is namely used for mainly for the application when you want to have environmental variables, or you can call it in the container command and argument, or you can even mount the volumes and attach it, and you can take the configuration. So you can specify this configuration in the YAML file, and you can I will show you the demo, and it's as a sample demo, so you will be able to understand on that part. So what I'm doing right now here is I'm going to deploy an Nginx. Then Nginx, I'm going to call the environmental variable. So I'm just going to call the environmental variables like development, and the log level is warning. So let me apply it. So let's apply that. So I'm going to apply the deployment. So I'm just going to apply the variables, environmental variables. So let's describe it. Yeah, so what I'm doing right now is that I'm going to add the values like environment is what is environment is development, and the log level is basically warning. So now I'm going to deploy the Kubernetes. The Kubernetes, I'm just going to call this environmental variable. So when we launch a new Nginx, it will call this function. So let's apply. Yeah. So kubectl get pods. Yeah, the container is still creating. Yeah, and I'm up now. What I'm going to now is that is I'm just going to log into the container and just see how it is look like. So in the container, I'm just going to echo the environment and the value. So you can see the environment is development. Okay, so you can see that its environment is what is development, and log level is warning. So you can use this configuration mainly in the config file, config settings in Kubernetes. You can inject into the container. So this is one example. Let me delete this first. I have a second example where you have a real Redis server. On the Redis, you can input the Kubernetes, means input the configuration, main config thing, and you can call it back. So see what I'm doing is that is in the Kubernetes and redis.config file. This is a configuration file. So for example, I want a memory for Redis for 2 MB, and a policy or some policies, memory policies you want to add it out. So let me add it now. So what I'm going to download is going to download the Redis config. So I've downloaded the Redis config. So now I'm going to create a new config for Redis. Yeah, so I've created a config map. Yeah, so what happened, what is here is that is I'm just adding the Redis config. So memory is 2 MB, and maximum memory policy all keys equal to LRU. So these two parameter I'm adding, and I'm going to launch the Redis. When I launch the Redis, I will specify my config file saying that you take this value, and let me show you the Redis config file, my deployment thing. When I launch Redis, so in the pod, I will try to specify I will just specify the config file, config data. So I am specifying example my Redis input values Redis hyphen config. So the Redis hyphen config we are having this values, two key values that when pod launches will automatically take it up. So let me launch it. Yeah, so the pod is launched. Let's log into the pod and we will be able to get the details. Yeah, just pause it for a minute. Yeah, so what happened is that I just launched the pod. Now let's check the pod, kubectl get pods. So yeah, I got the Redis now. Let's log into the Redis. So I'm just logged into the Redis now. Yeah, so what I'm going to know now is ls hyphen Redis master. So you have the Redis config file. So you have the two values, memory and memory policy. So this is how it normally works for example, if you have new a big configuration file and this can be dynamically changed. The next thing is the next topic is the next demo is that is like for example, I have the I have an container. I have a container. What happened is that is I want to keep on changing the values. That one I can show you. Let me delete the part. So kubectl delete hyphen f hyphen f. So I've deleted the Redis part. Now let's in this case, this scenario, what is the scenario is that is we will have one configuration file and the configuration file is a dynamic file. So it's dynamic in the sense means today I will have one value, tomorrow I will have another value. So let's deploy this first. So current thing I'm our config. I'm just making a data value test one, test two. So test one will be 111 and test two is triple files like 2222. So let's create this test config. Now what I'm going to do now is that is I'm just going to create this stuff. Okay, I think it's taking some time. Get caught. No, it's not there. Now deleted. So let's launch the config. Yeah, so new config is created. So kubectl get config. So you will have all the config. So let's delete this. Delete config map and delete additional config. Okay, delete it. So yeah, so you can get config your test config now. Now let's describe the test config. What is it as a values? So in this values, we are going to see about the in this value we are going to see how we are trying to how we are trying to use this value into the container. So currently I have this pod. In the pod what I'm doing, I'm just launching a busybox container. The busybox container I'm going to mount it internally in the volume that to call this data. So data is test one and test two data. So what we are going to do, let's launch a pod. So in the pod we are specifying in the volume. So let me launch the volume, create pod. So kubectl get pod. So get pods. So now what happened is let's go into the pod. I just launched it as a test pod. The pod is ready. In the pod we can call. I've created a config file. I said two parameters, test one and test two. So test one is this and test two is this. Sorry, test. So one now in this scenario, my value is I want to change the value. Say today someone is asking me, hey, I have to change this thing. So what I'm going to do is that is I'm going to edit this, edit the config map, test config, and change the value to 777. Then 9999. Now let's log into the pod and let's see So it's okay, still not taking. So kubectl get pods. Yeah. So now let's log in. Yeah, and see it is taken test. So cat etc. It took some time to reply immediately to come. So yeah, so done. So it's on the fly. You can make the change. So the container can able to. The advantage is that is you don't have to modify or delete the container and relaunch them. So or you can roll out. So it's quite easy to do with Kubernetes. So let's go for the in the next next topic we are going to cover is secret. So let's come to secret now.